So, it's been a year. Well, how long has it been since we last did this?
What was the last one? We did one...
Alan
No,
Mahon.
it was after that. We did one with My Flag, Sonny
did.
and Hasib.
So we did.
That was summer, maybe?
It was summer. Summer last year, so it's been at least 6 months. 7.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
It is. And it seems like that has flown by now that we're doing this again. It just kind of shows you how busy we got. And this...
It's not something we wanted to stop doing.
No.
It just kind of happened that way. I think it became a lot. I think that's the thing that I didn't realise when we decided to do this was how much preparation goes into it.
Absolutely. And we were doing 3-hour shows with 2 cameras.
Yep. And 4 or 5 microphones depending on people.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much the recording that was the problem because, well, not to call it a problem, but that wasn't so much what was the most time consuming, it was editing.
Yeah. It's like everything that, like, it's the after stuff.
Yeah. It's like, how long does it take to record a podcast? Well, it lasts 3 hours, and then it's 3 weeks to edit it and put it together.
Yeah, because you need to spend at least double that time listening to it and putting it together.
It's also very hard to listen to your own podcast.
Yes.
That was you, mostly.
Because you remember how you felt at the time as well.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
All those feelings.
Although I'm happy that we're bringing this back.
Yeah.
Back with a new name, new vigour.
Yeah, so what I would kind of hope is that people that are coming into this for the first time, they might not necessarily have listened to the old one or what it used to be. But it wasn't, there was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't why we changed the name. We changed the name because we wanted to freshen it up.
Yeah, and I think it fits better with the direction of the podcast now.
Yeah, I think what we wanted to do in the first place was what we're now doing.
Yeah.
I feel like when we first started out in the podcast, we thought too many ideas and it diluted what the original concept was, which was just us talking to folk that we thought were really interesting.
Yeah.
Which is what we'll do now.
We've got quite an exciting lineup.
Well, so far, yeah. We've only got 3 booked.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a really good couple of months coming up.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for today, it's us.
I know. Oh, what a letdown for everyone that's tuning in for this.
But it's been good for the past 6 months. It's not like we've just been sitting about the place twiddling our thumbs.
Yeah.
We have been doing stuff, lots of stuff. And we've changed quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah, I know, actually. The whole complexion of this business is totally different to what it was.
I think that was one part about the original podcast in comparison to what this one is that the original podcast was probably more closely aligned to our business.
Yes.
Whereas this one is, it's not that it's not a part of our business, but it's less focused on what we do and less focused on us, and more focused on the it being its own thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is something we both really wanted from the start, but it kind of, things get intertwined. And
yeah, like a clear line between our studio and this podcast. This podcast is its own thing, its own entity.
Just 2 dudes talking to other folk about...
I'm really excited, actually. I'm really excited.
Man.
If Dwayne Johnson actually comes on...
Yeah, like he said.
Like he said he would. It will be amazing.
I think that's one thing that we should let everyone know is that one day Dwayne Johnson will come on this podcast. He will come on one day.
If you know The Rock by chance, or you could just tweet at him that this podcast is a thing, that'd be good.
Yeah.
I mean, he already knows, but just to remind him, he's a busy guy.
He's welcome anytime. He doesn't even need an appointment. He can just show up, and we'll sit down with him quite happily. So, what's been happening in the past 6 months? We as a studio, we grew to 4, which is nice. We changed space, but that was the podcast. The last podcast we recorded was in this space with Hasib and Sonny.
That's right.
And that's changed a lot. That made it a lot easier to record because the old studio that we recorded the podcast in, there was a jazz bar. We used to record the podcast on the Friday night, mostly because it was 3 hours long and we have to ply each other and everyone that comes on the podcast with alcohol to get through 3 hours of conversation.
Yeah.
But by the time that you got halfway through it, that's when the jazz bar was starting to kick up.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
There were some really interesting tangents that came out of some of those podcasts.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you look at the list of who we went through, who we met, so there was, first there was Samuel and Aiste, who were both independent creatives, so they both came on. And then we had Jeremy, no, Jeremy wasn't until later on.
I think it was
K17, she came on.
Pave of Gold.
Yep, she came on third. And then number 4.
I think maybe been Jeremy.
No, Corrine was before Jeremy. Corrine Stiles.
Right.
From
Wheeler,
yep. She came on, I think she was, no, actually, I think she might have been 6 or 7.
There's a few in there.
There is a few in there. I think my favourite one was probably the one with Corrine where we spoke about the Kangaroo Island. I think that was probably one of my favourite tangents, possibly because it just...
We should dig that one out, actually.
We
When we go to put out snippets, we should dig that one out and put that one out as if this is the great content you're going to get.
this is what you can look forward to. Matt talking shit about kangaroos. Still true.
I never bothered to Google that, you know?
You don't have to. You can take my word on it. It's as good as gospel. I'm pretty sure it's existing. If it's not, I don't really want to know. So if you find out that it's just a fictitious story, I don't want to know.
I was going to ask you to tell me what the story was again, but I don't really want to go down that path. So.
Basically, it's just that kangaroos exist in Loch Lomond. That's the sum of it. On the island in Loch Lomond.
Oh man, how drunk were we?
Quite. We had Stephen
Goloney and Kirkwood.
Stephen Kirkwood, yeah. I didn't want to call them Stephen and Stephen there because
that's crazy. Since then, they've been. He had a residency in Ibiza.
Oh yeah.
And then he was part of the government's they had this campaign. I can't remember what it's called, but it was to promote people into creative industries.
Did they not do a stage show, or were on stage in the Hydro?
That's right.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, no, that was. I think that followed off the back of this. So they've done a lot of big things since coming on this podcast. And to be honest,
probably down to the podcast.
If they want to send us any sort of royalties for that,
it wouldn't probably have happened if they hadn't come on. But they have a really solid podcast as well.
Yes,
which is worth.
And they're consistent with it.
Yeah, which is something that we can't say that we are.
We'll get there.
There's a couple of solid guys. To be honest with you, the two of them make me kind of feel bad about what I'm doing sometimes. When I'm looking at their what they're doing on a daily basis, and then I'm like, oh yeah, some people will operate at that level and are doing that much all the time. And then we had Jeremy Warner here with Power Life. He came on, and he was talking about how things are kind of changing in his business, and they have now changed. He's now re-released the product. He's really pushing it, all of his accessory range, which seems really cool.
Yeah,
seems like some really nice stuff.
Yeah, he's a definite case in persistence, you know.
Yeah.
Because it'd be good to have him back on, actually.
It would be. It'd be good to hear what's changed for him since we last spoke. And then we had, last was obviously Hasib and Sunny. And they're still going strong, which is good.
Yeah, they had a lot of success at that Christmas time. In fact, since they were on, they went into they were in the European Championships. I don't think they were at that point yet when we spoke to them, but they had their.
I think on our podcast they kind of seminally announced it. Like they didn't say what it was, but they were saying that it was happening. And they were going to be official it wasn't official sponsors, like they were going to be officially, what's the word for it, when you're officially in, as official merchandise of the European Championships. And then they were in the Christmas market as well. I think they did pretty cool off that. I think that was a pretty cool event. I hope that Glasgow's Christmas market gets bigger and more Christmassy.
me and my friend were trying to decide where we should do Christmas night out, Christmas market, which market we should go to, Glasgow or Edinburgh. No
Edinburgh.
contest. No contest.
No, I know, it's a bit unfortunate. The thing is that I don't know why it's so difficult.
What, to organise a Christmas market?
Oh, no, sorry. I assume what I mean by that is I'm serious. I assume that it's not difficult to it's not easy to organise. Sorry, but I don't imagine that it's difficult to find inspiration for what it should be like. You know, like I just find that Glasgow's Christmas market just sits so far below even Edinburgh's, which is 50 miles that way, that you could just go and have a look and say, okay, so what is it they're doing, and then go anywhere in the continent and be like, all right, so what is it this tiny wee town of 20,000 people's doing?
I mean, they do have 2 markets here, and they're both very average.
Why 2? Why?
Maybe they're not run by the same people.
They look like they're run by the same people. You know what I mean? Like the all the stuff looks like it's run by the same people. And I know it's independents, right? Like it's independent companies that are in the stalls, but I'm not convinced that it's independent contractors who are in the food. And that's the big reason for going to a Christmas market. Anyway, I meant to tell you, Nana, but I'm starting a Christmas market business. And,
Hey, do you want to stop starting businesses, please?
Yeah.
Or ideas? Oh, speaking of ideas, we're starting an event. Oh, this would be a good place to announce that, actually.
It would be.
I'll let you do the honours. Should I do a drum roll or?
Oh, so we're doing an event. There we go. That's it. That's all there is to mention. We're launching an event called Digital After Hours. And again, separate from the design agency, what we are basically trying to do is very simple. Is we don't think there's enough focus specifically on digital in an event type space in Glasgow, in the event space in Glasgow. There's plenty of really great design, really great, there's actually a lot of really great kind of niche events that happen throughout Glasgow in design, in digital. Really specific, really granular dev talk, really great stuff.
Yeah.
But what I don't think, and what we're trying to do, is do something that's a little bit more accessible to everyone, but also accessible to or interesting to people who are in digital on a daily basis, who work in the same industry as us, but so they understand like the main points and understand the main themes, and they're able to come along and be interested by that. But also that people who maybe just work in design, or who maybe don't work in any sort of creative space, could come along and still listen in and find it to be entertaining.
I think as well is there have been events in the past, but I don't think they really capture the community that we could have here. You know, there's different pockets of communities. There's like a design community, there's not so much a development community, but just creative industries as a whole. But I think our event is going to be placed right in the middle of that, so that people can actually come together, and it can be like a meeting of everyone in these industries.
But that's the thing, right? Is that even I tend to look at it all too small and go like, there's not a huge community of digital relationships in Glasgow. But Scotland is such a digital focused country. Like, we have such a great software and development background that we should have a booming community or network of people that all know each other and all. I'm not so sure that an event necessarily is going to be that fusion that creates that, but I think it would definitely help kind of have a centralised area where if you don't necessarily know who the big dogs are, if you don't know what the cutting edge is that's happening in Scotland, that this is where it would happen, this is where you'd have that conversation. Yeah,
I think it just opens a line of communication. Like, this podcast will introduce a lot of people to the people that we know.
Yeah.
And the people that we are interested in speaking to.
True.
And out of that, same with the event, that's maybe the chance of how we can at least open a conversation. You know what it's like when we are just day to day, really busy. We're not thinking about what's going on at this agency or what's going on at that company. You know, you're thinking about
Yeah.
what it is you do, but very rarely do you share that with other people in the sector or even other sectors, which I think is a missed opportunity from everyone that works in digital or creative or software.
Yeah, it's a funny one because we all are using the same tools more or less. We all have the same ideas of some of the things we want to achieve and some of the possibilities for working in this industry, but I do feel like we're not the most we're not the most likely to go out and have an event to showcase or talk about the work that we've done. I think as well one of the things that I'm very aware of with digital is it's very, very hard to showcase your work without a physical, physically. Like there's not a physical presence for work. Like you don't actually have anything to touch 9 out of 10 times. It's all just it's in your computer, it's on your phone, it's an app or it's a piece of software, it's a website. So very rarely do you get to talk about the nuance of the background behind that because it's not necessarily what people are interested in.
True.
Even from a design perspective, like a digital design perspective or an experience, a UX or UI perspective, just having a conversation about how, not necessarily the whole product, I think that's one of the things that I'd be really enthusiastic to find people who'd be interested to talk about that, is people who have developed an application and they don't talk about the application. What they talk about is a very specific part of the UI or a very specific part about an overcoming an issue of experience. Or where they started off with an initial concept for an area and how they changed it into something else. And I'm going to go on and on and on here, but one of the big ones for me is getting people in who are in games, because I am no good at any of that stuff.
Oh, have you ever tried to write any sort of physics?
I watch some YouTube videos and then get really frightened of it and just stop. I just go, oh, okay, that's not what I do.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not going to try that.
I like to follow independent game developers that do like development blogs, and they say, oh yeah, we thought it would take us 6 months to build this. It took them 3 years.
Yeah.
You're like,
you hear that?
That's every day, you know.
The one for me, I watched a video recently, and it was about the developers behind Serious Sam. Do you remember Serious Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were building that game for years on their own, like just a group of guys that wanted to build this game. So they built, like at that point in time, licensing a games engine was extremely expensive, so they built one. They built their own, so they could build this game. And then they released it for free, because there wasn't like the same network or the same like audience for games at that point in time, so they released it for free, and then it got picked up and then it was distributed. But like they were taking this massive leap in the dark. Like sometimes when I talk about, or when we talk about starting this business and just taking this leap that we didn't really know if it was going to work or how it was going to work or whether or not it would be successful, there was always like a general, there was already like a basis of people that had done what we had done to an extent, so we knew that, like, okay, so they've done it, so therefore there is a way of doing this. But at that point in time, for these guys, there was no blueprint. Oh yeah, look at all these other independent games designers who are releasing games and becoming successful off of that. It was just, we really want to build this game and it might work.
No, I love that. That. Those are those are the type of people you'd want to get on to, get into the mindset of somebody like that. I think some people, rightly or wrongly, start things with the exit in mind. So like, how do we make a certain amount of money out of this? There's so many things like that, like games especially, where it isn't clear that there's a business behind that, but they spend a long time developing it because they want to.
It's one of the most creative areas that exist in digital, in my mind. It's like a sculpture. It's like a piece of artwork. You know when people like make that argument of a game's not art?
Yeah.
That really bothers me, because it's so much work and so much effort without any idea of if people will respond to it.
Every frame of a game especially the AAA games you get now. You could take a still of any one of those and think it was a piece of graphic art.
Yeah.
And to think that that's just an environment to a story that they're trying to tell you that you can interact with.
Yeah.
It blows my mind, really. It's amazing.
It's a whole other level of digital. But that's one of the things that getting people in who are in games development and games design would be really interesting from the event perspective. So the event, back to the announcement of the event, Digital After Hours, will be coming in the next 1 or 2 months, I think March. Although it's looking like March is going to be a really busy month that we didn't expect it was going to be so busy. We might be, I'll be getting married. Yeah, and we might have other things in the pipeline that are just kind of moving along that might start, but we're anticipating that March, middle to end of March, will be...
2019, we'll definitely have
Well, definitely at some point in 2019 we're going to have more than one event focused on digital. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really, really looking forward to it. So if you're listening to this, you know anybody that you think would suit the bill in any form of digital that you think could come along and tells us an interesting story, we're up for it. Absolutely up for it. That back to what you were just saying there, that's a kind of interesting point that I wonder, I'd be interested to get an answer to, which is how many businesses, digital businesses, or how many people that start businesses do you think start them with longevity in mind? I'm not talking about like 5-10 years, I'm talking like generational longevity. Or do you think that most people start businesses thinking, I'm going to do this for 10 years and then I'm going to sell it? Or then I'm going to start another business?
I don't know, I've always imagined it's like the gold rush, you know? I think people start businesses because there's opportunity in that business, whatever it is, and then they stay in that business for as long as it's making money, essentially, because it opens up a lot of opportunities. So you have a friend actually who's a sound engineer, and the guy is looking to sell the company and offered it to him.
Yeah.
It was just like a really, imagine that. Imagine someone offered us a business to take on when we started. So really, I don't think he's going to end up taking it. But I think businesses like that just stay alive as long as there's money coming in and there's work to be done.
Absolutely.
Legacy is one of these really weird things. I don't think anyone can really tie that conceptually down. Like, you know, there's like businesses that are generations old.
Yeah.
But so I can't remember the facts. I'll attach it to the show notes. But it's of the Fortune 500 companies, it's like quite a high percentage of them go out of business within, I think it's 10 to 20 years.
Okay.
So some companies just explode out of nowhere, like Facebook, for example.
Yeah.
Like, that's an anomaly. But there's nothing to, like, at the moment it feels like Facebook is the de facto social network, and that business is just an institution now, and it's never going anywhere. But with all the issues that they've had recently, and the amount of value that's been wiped off of their books, that company could go under probably within 6 months. If things really took a turn, they could just vanish.
It's such a shaky industry, like digital. Like
it is, products,
digital.
yeah,
because your product, if you've got a digital product, it's constantly being pushed by an external factor, which is the hardware industry.
It's true.
You know, like, if you've got a really successful application, it's making decent money or it's making good money, and then somebody decides, and let's just say, for example, Google decided, actually, you know what, we can't be bothered doing phones anymore, and your application is based entirely through Android. You know, that's it gone. Or not even that, but most of these sorts of applications, they're starting to kind of like wall them into areas. So like Android is walling in any applications on Android, and Apple have always walled in applications on iOS. But Apple make the rules, Android make the rules. They just decide this is how this is going to work now, and then you need to adapt constantly. And I don't know, I've never worked in any other business where you have to adapt to an extent where it doesn't necessarily even make sense that you have to adapt. You know, like, you've probably got a really beneficial revenue stream that works for everybody, and then a company decides we need to now diversify or change our product lineup, so therefore that's why we're going to make all these decisions that affect your business.
Applications is a really tough business. There was a series on The Verge, I think, called Small Empires.
A good series.
Very good series.
Where did that go to?
I think Alex Ohanian, that name's impossible to say, the Reddit co-founder. I think he just got too busy, got married, had a kid, just couldn't.
That's right,
do
he's
it
married to
Serena Williams.
Yeah, that's right.
But a lot of what the guys that had started these not big companies, like you would know the companies, OkCupid, all these type of businesses.
Yeah.
You either selling somebody's data, is how you either advertising,
Yep.
or Apple or Google take, I think it's like 50% they take, or 30%,
I think it's 30%.
some huge margin they take, and there's just not an alternative to either them advertising or you getting most of your IPs taken from you, and it's such a tricky thing, because obviously we know a lot of people that are in that situation where they've got products.
Yep.
And thankfully all of them are monetizing it in terms of it's a paid subscription. I think that's the right way to run some sort of business like that, because if you're dependent on external factors.
I think even Apple take a cut of the paid subscription.
Right, if it comes from the App Store.
Yeah.
Yeah, because was it not Fortnite that tried to do it outside of the App Store?
Yeah.
And got into all sorts of issues because of it.
I think Netflix are trying to find a way of not, because if you're buying it through them.
Really? They're taking a cut?
Yeah. That's why I remember reading something in The Verge, about Netflix trying to do something, because if you imagine their business has made $5.99, whatever it is, and then Apple, let's say they take 10% of that. That's more than you want to be given to the guy who. I mean, I guess when you think about it, it's not all that different from a shopkeeper. You know, like you have to pay somebody. But I guess the only problem with Apple and with Android is that they kind of run a monopoly on it, like a shared monopoly. Because imagine if you could only have a shop front buying off of two guys.
Yeah, they could hike the prices up.
Yeah.
They have a mutual agreement that things cost what they cost.
And neither one of them want to ruin the other one's business. Like, it's important they exist, otherwise they then become a true monopoly, like a single business. But
just going back to your original point of, do you think some businesses are set up for legacy? I think that right now is such a weird time for it, because the biggest businesses are all online: Amazon, Facebook, Google.
yeah,
And who knows? It doesn't look like Amazon are going anywhere. I mean, a lot of products, digital products, rely on Amazon.
they have a whole infrastructure in place now.
I think
It's huge.
I think they lose money on the shopping Amazon and make money on their cloud service, which just blows my mind.
Well, what is it, the percentage of the internet that would cease to, that would go down if Amazon's web services stopped working?
It would be frightening.
Yeah, it would put all of us out of business. But that's one of those things where, again, it's like you start to look at those areas. You look at Amazon, the amount of the actual web that they store, and then you look at Google, the amount of the web that they index. Let's say Google ceased to exist tomorrow, what the impact would be to anybody who uses the internet. Because Google, love them or hate them, they really made it accessible. They made the internet an accessible place that you could access anything you wanted by search.
Here's a question. Sorry. The question is, so Google's model's obviously everything's free. YouTube is free. Android is free.
Yep.
Search is free. Gmail is free. Did I say that already? Google Drive is free.
Yep.
All of this, Google Maps is free. I can't imagine trying to get anywhere without Google Maps now.
Nope.
So, a lot of people, I may be an outsider here, but a lot of people are unhappy with them, the way that they use data in terms of your privacy is their product. That's what they're selling to advertisers. That's what all businesses use when they're targeting people using AdWords.
But it's free.
But it's free. And I can't imagine what you'd need to pay every year for all of the services that they offer. Remember Microsoft when they used to, I think they still do charge for 365. It's like £300 a year for Outlook and all of that.
Yeah.
So that would just be for your email, and then TomTom, remember TomToms?
Yeah.
That was a subscription every year. How much would we need to pay to replace Google? And I'm okay with that. I know the argument, like I'm quite security conscious, obviously because of what we do, but in terms of privacy, if you want to Google me, that's fine. I'm happy for you to know where I stay, or what my business is, or where I am in social media. I don't know where honestly, I've been looking for a reason to become one of these dark web, grey hat hacker types that just is like Mr. Robot, just shreds his hard drive and becomes totally anonymous. But I really can't find where the abuse of that information would be.
I think the abuse of it has already happened.
Yeah.
I think that the smart thing about what Google have done is that they've been abusing you for years, and you've just accepted that that's now what it is. Because I think if you said to somebody, if you went way back prior to the internet being a major deal, and you brought somebody from that time forward to right now, and you said to them, okay, look at all this stuff, it's free, but this company then knows everything about you, and they're going to sell that information to advertisers so that they can sell you stuff. I think you'd have a great deal of issue with that whole concept. But it's just happened slowly over time. Google started off as a search engine, and they're like, oh, actually, you know what? Here's some free mail, bro. And then you took some mail from them. You're like, oh, that's pretty sweet. That's cool. I can now do my mail. And then they give you a calendar, and it's like, oh, populating your stuff. And then all of a sudden they give you Drive, and you've got your kids' photos, and and all of a sudden, I remember it was that keynote that Google, when they released Photos, Google Photos.
Yes.
And they were up on stage, and the guy was saying, look, I've been taking pictures of my kid since they're a baby, and we know that this picture of baby George is George of today because of the facial recognition. And I remember watching that thinking, I don't.
Yeah.
That's so weird. That's such an uncomfortable thing. And then there was the one, but Google always do weird shit like that, and then people forget about it. That they forget that was a thing. Remember when they had that phone, they called to make an appointment for you. You were like, I want to make an appointment at that hair salon. So Google's fake voice would call the hair salon, and they'd even put I think that was a bit that
bits
made
of intonation where it's acting human.
Wee things where it was obviously trying to trick the user to believe that they were talking to another person.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, do you mind? I'll just have a wee look for the next available appointment, and then the robot would be like, no worries.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing. I think they're just constantly trying to deceive, and then sometimes they cross over that threshold and they realise that they can't, and they go, okay, now go back.
I'm going to defend Google there and say when I can't remember what they've called it. It's a part of Google Assistant where you can make calls to salons to book restaurants. It says, I'm Google Assistant.
Yep.
I'm Google Assistant calling for Matt Collins.
Yep.
So the person that receives that knows that this is automated.
But it didn't do it initially. That wasn't originally
was that
part
added?
of it. Yeah, that was added because of the outrage that was caused.
Well, okay, so I think,
but that's
going to your point, sorry, if you take someone from, let's say, early 90s where the internet was just not a thing, and you gave them a modern smartphone, you gave them an iPhone or a Note and say, this thing has your maps, all of your music, all of your movies, all of TV on demand, all of your emails, all of your text messages, and just went through the list of things that these phones can do now. This thing can run meditation apps for you. You can track your fitness on it. You can use it as a notepad if you want. Yeah. And they would go, what is this magic, and how do I give you my kidneys to get it? I like listening to some security podcasts because I'm a total nerd. And they're usually, what they're talking about is usually people not being secure with the things that they need to be secure with. Yeah. But not that I feel like I don't have anything to hide, but I don't feel like somebody could abuse the power that Google have to do anything detrimental to me. Now, if we want to go down the Black Mirror route and say that someone at Google has an agenda with you and they can just fabricate whatever they want, that's totally different. But we've not seen any of that, and I am waiting for that to happen.
Oh, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Maybe it's already happened and we don't know about it.
Well, I mean, there's got to be something. There's got to be something.
To this point, I can't. The benefits the benefits outweigh the costs in my mind.
It's all the same. It's all the same argument, but it's like the same argument when it comes to whether or not the government should be able to listen to your phone calls, or should be able to access your private email, or be able to like just go through your shit whenever they want. And most people respond to that with, "Well, I've got nothing to hide."
The government's not somebody I trust, though, in that sense.
No, I know. I don't trust them either. But that's what most people think, is it's like, well, I've got nothing to hide, so therefore it's okay if the government goes through my shit, they're not going to find anything incriminating, so it doesn't matter. And that's the same with Google. It's like Google can't, like, there's nothing, no shit of mine is going to be a problem for me if Google have it. So it doesn't really matter if they have it. Okay, they're going to sell some ads, but that's on the assumption that Google retain the same policies that they retain. Now, Google are more or less, they have policies that I generally speaking agree with, and you look at the sorts of people that they've hired and the sorts of social justice that happens on their employment campuses alone must imply that the sort of people that they are hiring have the same value structure as Google has in some way or another. So you kind of hope that maybe that, you know, those two things don't intersect negatively, that the company's being pushed in the direction by the staff who have got a positive set of morals. But how long? How long will that last? How long before the founder or the CEO, who is a very nice guy by the seams of things, you know, gets replaced by somebody who's a little bit more shit?
Okay, so let's say we take, you know, this reminds me of veganism, and I'll tie the two together, right? Because like you and I went vegetarian for a year and a bit because of the impact that has on the planet.
Yeah.
But if you take that principle of, you know, meat is bad for the planet, how far do you take that? Because you could become a vegan. And the same principle applies to privacy, I think. Because
how far do you take it?
How far do you take it?
Yeah.
Because if you de-Googled your life, let's say, no more Gmail, no more Google Maps, no more Android, right? Okay, fine, that's fine. We'll move to Apple.
Yep.
But then Apple have all that data. And I know they protect your data so that it's device to device encrypted, but there's nothing to say that what's in your iCloud can't be, like those iCloud leaks that happened. Yeah. So, okay, so you're going to protect all of your information. So that means you need to think about your operating system as well on your computer. Are you going to then install Linux, but not Ubuntu, because Ubuntu have that thing where you search and it goes to Amazon, and Amazon know that you've been searching. And some people don't like that because it can identify you. So you've not got an iPhone and you've not got an Android phone.
Or
so
a computer with a usable operating system.
Or a computer with a operating system where the learning curve isn't 4 years. Right? You're not a programmer, you're not a developer, so you can't just willy-nilly do this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how far do you take it with privacy? So I'm of the opinion that if you're not going to go 100%, then Google's fine.
I think there's probably a balance to be found. I think it's one of those ones where Facebook are trying their best.
Facebook are an evil corporation.
No,
they are socially engineering the downfall of Generation Z, and I think we're just starting to see how bad the situation is with social media, its effects on younger people. Like, you and I are of a generation where social media wasn't a thing. It was a sort of thing maybe towards when we were leaving high school and going into college and university. That's where it started. So we were already pretty much adults when that started. Whereas people that have had it their whole time, I won't go through the stats now, but the effects on mental health are so depressing that we're going to look back and go, Facebook were killing our kids, basically.
Well, I think you're right. Those things are true. But what was more meaning was, in relation to the privacy thing, is that every single time, I don't use Facebook, but I still have it, right? And it's probably still logged in on my computer, which is probably a big problem, right? Like that's in my mind, no doubt an issue for me one day. But they, every single time I find myself on it, because I still use it for events. I think that's the argument everyone has.
And
I
your
still use
family.
it for events and family, and that's it. But every single time I go on, it's like, would you like to review your privacy? Every single time. Without fail, it asks me, do you want to check like your privacy because you haven't looked at it in a while?
Yep.
And I've dismissed it every single time it's come up. And I'm sure that if I just read through it, I'd be able to turn off most of the shit that I felt was egregious, like it's too much, like you shouldn't have access to that. But I haven't done it. And I'm in this industry. So I imagine that most people probably, unless you're really determined to like, I'm not giving you that information, presuming that you can trust them, that when you click the no button, that they don't just continue doing it anyway. But I think it doesn't need to be an all or nothing. I think you can find a nice middle ground where you pick and choose the services you want, and then you limit the access they have to your life. And accept the access that they do have is limited by trusting them that what they say is the case. Because you need to make the decision, do you trust these people enough to take them on their word, or do you not? And at the moment, Google haven't given me any great deep reason to not trust, well, no, they have. They've given me many reasons to be like, I'm done.
This is the cognitive dissonance that I go through all of the time, because we know for a fact that Facebook, Google are not, they're human, you know, and they have their own interests, and they are abusing our information. So if you want to use these services, you have to know that that's the case and only share with them what you're happy for them to take. But the problem isn't what you're sharing with them, because I think you and I would only share, we wouldn't share anything, what's the word, sensitive with these platforms. We'd share what we thought was innocuous. Yeah. But there's so many ways that the big data can predict what it is we're going to feel or do, that we're given, even though the terms of service might not say explicitly that they're trying to control your emotions. Well, you know, that's part and parcel. You need to know what the terms of service mean, or what it's actually saying. And I don't think I've ever read the terms of service document. Thankfully, there's people out there, journalists, that report on us all the time, but it doesn't really affect. Even when they tell you the most egregious stuff, like the Facebook microphone situation, where they were listening to what was in the background to identify what advert was playing, allegedly. That should have been, no, this can't happen. Or the Cambridge Analytica. That wasn't even a scandal. Facebook did what it set up to do. They sold their information to a marketing company. Unfortunately, that marketing company used it for the wrong reasons. Well, that's the problem. They're open to do whatever they want with it. But then again, there's nothing. The problem with that is that, see, those marketing companies, they exist. It's not that. For me, sometimes see like these red herrings where everyone freaks out about a company doing something like that. It's kind of like, yeah, but they've always been doing that. They were doing that before they bought Facebook's data. Yeah, that's not a first. It's just Facebook made you more accessible because you gave them all of your information, and Facebook used that, or that company used that in a way that you weren't happy with. But I don't necessarily believe that anyone honestly was surprised. No, I think everyone's just apathetic to this now. Yeah. It seems to be journalists and people in America that get really upset by this stuff, but we're all used to it. I think we're all used to the abuse, as you said. So for me, it's you use these services knowing that you're being abused, or you live a hermit life and get out of digital, and I have no interest in doing that. No. So I thought we're supposed to be advocates of digital, right? Like, it's the way forward. It's the way forward. That so far has been, you're using any form of digital is really just a form of abuse, but you've signed up to that abuse, so ride it out. I don't think digital gets the credit for all the great things that have happened. No, it doesn't. It gets too much of a pounding. It does. You know, everyone wants to think about the negatives of anything. I mean, the thing is that we're so used to it now that people are jaded with it. Like, I remember when Instagram came out and how pure a social network it was, which is a really weird thing to say now. Yeah. But it had no advertisements. It was just pictures. I don't think there was hashtags in the early days. So it was just a picture with a caption. And it's just this most simplest thing. But obviously the pressures of it being bought by Facebook and it being a business is that it needs to ramp up the engagement.
But that's the thing.
So now
It's a business.
Now I go through Instagram and I'm like waiting for something. And I know the mechanisms that they're using. You know, they're wanting me to get that dopamine hit every time I find an interesting picture. And it's maybe 1 in 30, but I'm still on it because it's pictures and it's better than anything else.
But it's almost mind-numbing. That's the thing about it, is sometimes you're just on it for the sake of being on it. And that's the ones that worry me, is when you find yourself looking at it and you're like, how did I get here? Like, I don't remember consciously making a decision that I was going to look at this, but here I am.
Yeah, it's notifications. I believe I think that notification sound triggers you into wanting to look at whatever it was. It's like, look at me. I think that's like a really deep evolutionary hack that they've put into phones. Because much of the chagrin of my partner, I've turned off my notifications. Like, I don't get notifications unless it's a call. And
that's cool.
Honestly, I don't look at my phone as much at all. And I moved all the social networks off of my home screen. Yep. So they're still there. I haven't gone rogue, but they're still there. But unless somebody interacts with me, I'm not going on it, or I don't feel the draw to it as much. But I'm like you. I'll be doing something work related, and I'll get a notification, and I'll be on Facebook.
Yep.
And I'll look at what was notified to me. It's not something interesting, and then I'll start scrolling. I'm like, what am I doing? How has this happened?
I showed the other day to you about how I was sitting on. I went on LinkedIn for a very specific purpose of finding out who somebody was, because I needed to get in touch with them. So I went on to look for them, opened up LinkedIn, and then I started to scroll, right? And then I saw something that irritated me, and I got angry about it, and then I told you about it, because I was like, what is this? What is this? I was getting so irritated by it. And then I realised, hang on a second, this isn't what I came on here to do. I've been spending, I don't know how long I've even been looking at this, but I was in the middle of a task that was important, and now I'm sitting shouting at a computer screen with you. I think that's one of the ones that really just, that for me, is the big thing about the internet in general when it comes to the seriousness of a situation. Like, I'm pretty certain that there's things that are happening on the internet in general. Like what was happening in the US with, was it Ajit Pai, the FCC fella, basically just taking away net neutrality. And then basically what's happening with Europe right now with, I can't remember what it is exactly that they're doing. It's
is it Article 13 or something like that?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Copyright law.
Copyright laws. That's the one. That's what I was looking for. There's probably that's really serious things, right? But I find all too often that the internet gets extremely loud about things that don't matter. So you become numbed to responding to things that do matter. And I think that's one of the great worries about social networks and social media, is you almost have learned to turn off the noise, the anger when something happens, because you've learned that it's mostly shit. But that means, unfortunately, that you do miss the things that do matter. It's almost like the 24-hour news cycle, which already existed before social media, but when it became in your hands, when it was in your hands, you can't get away from it. You don't. It's not like you have to turn on like Sky News or CNN. That's just, unfortunately, now a constant in your life. So, well, it's one of the great issues with it, is that you can't tell what's important and what's not important anymore. And that for me is where, you know, like when you're speaking about Instagram, I remember when they changed the order of Instagram. I remember actual websites, news websites, serious news websites, commentating on the fact that Instagram had changed the order of their feed.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're reporting about how the internet's gone mad over it. It's like, who gives a shit? Right? Like, well, obviously enough people give a shit. But they really need to look at themselves and go, why am I angry about this? Getting angry about the internet, I think, is one of the is another problem with that.
I think you've touched on something that's always bothered me. Well, not always, because it's quite a recent thing. But it's really hard to separate what's useful from what's noise online.
Yeah.
and sometimes if you're not paying, that's what I've noticed, is that if you stop paying attention, like I was saying, I don't go on social media, sometimes you miss something of worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, how was I supposed to know about that unless someone told me? Because I'd need to sit through a barrage of nonsense to get there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just one of these things where that's just seems like I don't know, I think we're right on the cusp of something fundamentally changing with the way that news works. Because you've seen a lot of these older newspapers are starting to ask for subscriptions. Now I actually think that is the model. I think you get people to pay for the content that they value. I think, because I already pay for subscriptions to things, podcast applications. I've got so many subscriptions to things, it's putting me in a hole. But I think that's the right model. I think trying to bait people for clicks and just talking mince, I think that's just a surplus. I think that's just a surplus symptom of this new technology being adopted en masse.
Yep.
And I think we'll get to a point where you have to pay for the content, but I don't trust any newspaper to tell me what's objective here. Like, what is your angle? I feel like they're trying to sell me a story rather than inform me, which is maybe...
Well, that's the thing, is that's what they always did do. They always did try and sell you a story.
At least, I still think that investigative journalism was a really serious... I think maybe 100 years ago, news, the whole point of it was to criticise what's going on so that we could be informed, so that we could vote based on that information.
Yep.
But now you've seen with everything that's happening in Europe, everything that's happening in the States, there's so much distrust of media and social media as well. And I think old media is trying to discredit social media, which makes everyone distrust it. But then social media is instant, so it just shows how obsolete news is and how influenced it is, how biased it is. Like the fact that you get conservative papers and liberal or left papers, that just, I don't understand that. It should be just what is happening.
Yeah, what's the news here?
Tell me the facts here. I don't want spin. I don't want this person is the devil and this person is a saint. I just want information.
But that's one of the things that we've managed to somehow do, is newspapers have managed to discredit social media enough, and social media has managed to discredit the news enough. Like, the idea of social media was that, like, you can get away and you can get the truth from sources that aren't the big, the big empires of news, that are telling you how to live and think. But then social media is just filled with shite, and the news is like, look how much shite's on social media, and everybody's just now a little bit lost as to what to do. And for me, I think that that Brexit, Donald Trump, these big ticket news stories highlight to me how ineffective the news system is in both social and in terms of journalism, because we've now managed to get people to believe that nobody's telling the truth. So their position is made entirely on how they feel about it. Yeah. Like, I feel like this would be better. It's like Brexit. Feel how you want to feel about Brexit. Really, it doesn't matter, because we're there, we're doing it. So if you don't want it to happen, or you do want it to happen, and that's what you want to stick by your guns with, okay. But see, when somebody tells you, fundamentally this isn't going to be better, or fundamentally this is going to be better, and it comes from a reputable source, what we've trained people to do now is go, I don't believe that.
And that's worth something.
And that means something. That's got value. And it doesn't have value.
It's the same as people, that right there, what you're describing, is the same as people being offended. And sometimes I can't tell whether people are genuinely offended by something, or whether they think because... So let's say they are genuinely offended by something. Yeah. They think that in and of itself is valid. It might not be. No. And it's the same with news. Like, something might be a fact. Doesn't matter how you feel about it. Doesn't matter if you like it. It's still a fact. Yeah. It's wild. But I honestly, just to put an optimistic spin in this, I think that this is the peak. I think this is the peak of distrust. And I think everyone's revenue models is going to have to change. So people's revenue models is going to have to change, because people aren't going to pay for things they don't trust. No.
No, they won't.
And out of this, I honestly think something will replace Facebook. Something, maybe even a clone, but the emphasis is on the user. So we know the guy from Kindaba has got a social network that is essentially that. It's a private social network
I think
where you pay.
Yeah, the founder of that's a girl, but the guy that we know is I think is the head of marketing.
Right. So there's the model.
Yeah,
you have a social network that you pay for, as opposed to you're the product, and your engagement with the platform is the bloodline of it.
Yeah.
Because like you were saying with LinkedIn, same model, you're looking through it and you see something that annoys you. It's very rarely something that makes you go, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And even the cynical part of you that does see something nice, you're like, show offs. Why are you bragging about that? You know?
It could be that I'm a very angry human being when it comes to things like that. But,
could be that.
But I with LinkedIn in particular, it just feels to me like a lot of shite. A lot of people talking a lot of shite sometimes. You're just like, enough.
If anyone listening to this likes LinkedIn, could you please tell us why?
Yeah, sales pitch for LinkedIn would be good. Like somebody who like is an investor in LinkedIn. Somebody who really truly believes that it's the best way of doing what. Because to me it feels like it's Facebook, but just for business owners or people who are in business. But anyone who has a job really. So then it just really feels like a social media because everybody's got a job.
It's kind of like walking through a convention centre and everyone's just shouting their business pitch at you. And then you'll meet a crowd of people gathered around one person who's done something good, and they're all patting them in the back.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is.
And then if someone stops and goes, here, this is a lot of shite, by the way, I don't like this, everyone just hounds them. Oh, like vultures. I've seen some vicious things on LinkedIn.
I've never seen things as vicious as I've seen on LinkedIn. I've seen, like, I agree, like you've shown me, and I've seen some shit that I just can't believe, like, in the civilized world of business, that's what went down. Because you're just like, oh my god, how did that person say that in the first place? But then how do all these people think it's okay to just hound them, like absolutely destroy their character
publicly as well?
Publicly. That's the big bit that's crazy about it.
Yeah, nuts. It's nuts.
But that's the great thing, and you're right. There's on the positive spin on things. That's the great thing about digital is that it will keep moving if it's not right. If the people don't want it, in theory, it will keep moving and it will be replaced or fixed by somebody who has a better vision for it. And right now, I don't think we've got that person. I don't think that is it Jack Dorsey from Twitter. I don't think he's got anything to give. I think he had his bit and he had a good idea, but I don't think he knows what it is. I don't really feel that anybody really knows what Twitter is or what its place is.
I really like Twitter, but you need to actually... Okay, so Twitter is a really funny one where you get to see what other people like, and you get that on other platforms, but it pops the thing that somebody else has liked into your feed as if you're following that person.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a side effect, but it's as if something is offensive or controversial, that's going to have the biggest thread of people commenting on it, and that's going to have the most people interacting with it. So right there, you've got echo chambers of abuse. Not abuse, maybe that's too strong a word, but public people can get really hounded.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I've never received a negative tweet or a negative anything, business page, whatever, or personal page. No one's ever said anything negative to us, ever.
No.
But I can imagine if one person said something negative, I'd be like, why are you attacking me?
But that's the thing. I don't think you can tell the difference. Like, and it's like if I said something negative to you, like actually genuinely hurtful, I think it has an equal weight as somebody saying that hurtful thing to you, but you've never met them and they're halfway across the world, and it's a wee arsehole, you know, who just is looking for ways to piss people off or upset folk because he's irritated at something or she's irritated at something.
I just feel like when you're having a conversation with somebody, like you're saying, if someone criticises you, if you're not a psychopath, you go, is what this person's saying valid? And if it is valid, what can I do about that? Yeah. Whereas with the social media, if someone says something, maybe say maybe someone says something nasty about you, but there's an element of truth in it, and you can't tell whether this person is saying this place from a bad place or whatever,
or if they're just doing it,
or they're just being a troll or whatever. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a famous person and then to have to deal with it. I don't think they read comments, to be honest, because how could you?
Well, I think the number one goal, the number one advice for the internet in all circumstances is don't read the comments. Like, just stay away from the comments. Like, read the original tweet or read the original post, but then see what other people have to say about that. Doesn't matter. Not important. To you. It may be important to them, and it may be important to the discussion they're having, and they're welcome to have it. But I think 9 out of 10 times I need to stay away from it because I just get irritated by everything that other people are irritated by.
I remember tweeting something really innocuous. I like to tweet, positive, happy, clappy stuff. Just put some positive vibes out there in the world. And this guy came back. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I remember getting into this beef with him on Twitter. This is like 12 o'clock at night. This was like a work night. And I was like still tweeting the guy. This conversation going back and forth. Because I wanted to be right. I wanted him to understand that I was right. Yeah. I was like, what am I doing? Like, who is this guy? Yeah. 5 minutes ago, I didn't know who this guy was, and now he's my arch nemesis for whatever reason. So I can and you see that all the time from people that you would imagine know better.
No, but they don't. That's the problem. They don't. Nobody knows better. We're all still figuring it out. But until we figure it out, we're going to keep on moving with it, right? Keep doing and seeing what happens. Anyway, we said that we weren't going to go over an hour, and we've just gone over an hour by 5 minutes.
That's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
But
do you want to round this out, or
I think the round out of it is that there's a lot of things to discuss. There's a really great conversation to be had around digital, and I think as long as you treat it as something digital and remove the emotion from it, and you look at it reasonably, and you discuss how you can fix it and find a solution to these problems, anything is possible. Yeah. But I think as long as we tie ourselves to these platforms and these non-real things, we're just going to cause upset for ourselves. Unduly.
Yeah. You made a really good point earlier. And I think for the longest time, a lot of us have been very passive about digital, about giving a little bit of privacy here and a little bit of data there, and what does it really matter? I even started the conversation by saying that. But I think we're moving into a phase where because digital is so interweaved in everything, life, business, friends and family, I think everyone's going to take a little bit more responsibility of the digital things that they use. Yep. And that's really exciting for us and really exciting for anyone that works in digital, because we're going to have to find out a better way of doing this, because it's here and it's not going anywhere. So, yes.
I think that's a good place to end it. So, next podcast, if all goes well, is going to be Craig Black.
Craig Black, the typographist. Typographer?
I don't know, we'll need to get...
Artist extraordinaire.
Artist extraordinaire. He's going to come on the podcast to discuss all life.
Yes,
all things.
That'll be fantastic.
And we'll get which one it is, a typographer or a typographist.
I think he's a typographer.
I don't know. He will know. He will know better than we will know.
Spoken like a couple of developers.
Yeah. But looking forward to having him on, and well, just hope that this first podcast was enjoyed by all.
Yes.